So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to do something on your motorcycle and not look like a complete By the end of this video, you're going to find out how to be an absolute badass with like 2 tools and maybe 1 beer. I'm going to use coffee today though. Let's have some fun. We're going to start on this beautiful VT600 Honda Shadow. In a few quick steps, I'm going to show you how to turn your bike from a gross sounding pile of crap to a wild, mean, lean street machine. How 80s street rod did that sound? So first thing, we've got already taken off the exhaust here. We didn't want to bore you with the process of removing your stock exhaust because it'd be a total news fest. It's like, hey guys, do you know how to wipe your Let me show you. First, you get the toilet brush, you dip it in the water, you know, I mean, everyone knows what's next, you know? What we're gonna do is we're gonna use some awesome tools and have fun. So I'm gonna use these little tiny picks I got from Snap-on. We may be using some other things too. We'll start with this guy. I'm gonna take the exhaust gasket out of here, and you can see it's a little copper chingus. That's not getting it. So we're gonna use this dude. You can get in between the gasket, and there it is. And now I'll use a little 90-degree pick to pull it out. There you go. You can see this gasket is very thin. What the gasket starts life as is this round thing. What happens when you put your exhaust in, it smashes this down and creates a good seal between the exhaust boss and the exhaust port here. When you pull your exhaust out, you don't want to reuse this. What's very likely going to happen is the next exhaust that goes in here is not going to sit exactly the same as the other one. And you may have pinched it in wiggling the exhaust out. All kinds of stuff can happen. It'll create an exhaust leak for you, which is going to make it very hard to tune, and the bike will also sound like you're ripping paper while you go down the road. So we're going to take this, and that goes in the garbage. Have our new exhaust gasket, and we're going to put it up in here. If it stays, great. If it doesn't, we'll wait till we put the exhaust in. Looks like it's probably going to stay in there. Just take your thumb or your favorite finger and push it on in. Perfect. Now we'll do the same for the rear cylinder. This one's a little harder to get to, but if you're patient and you don't get your in a wad, it'll come out. Now you can get these brand new exhaust gaskets on shoptjbc.com. They come in different materials sometimes. Sometimes we get them in copper, or they may be a paper gasket, but it's the very same concept. You can see in the rear here, this is very important to have the gasket, because if we didn't, the exhaust went in at a slight angle and it didn't sit perfectly around the exhaust gasket, but the gasket was there to create a perfect seal. Very important stuff. Oh yeah. Beautiful. There's the new one. These are not rings, exhaust gaskets. Again, we're gonna use our favorite finger. And again, if this doesn't wanna stay inside the exhaust port, that's okay. Usually you can get them to kind of wedge in there. That one's staying just fine. Now let's grab our rear exhaust pipe. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and germs, we have the HiLo drag exhaust in chrome for the VT600 going on this bike today. You can get these at shoptjbc.com. And as always, don't forget, don't be a fool, wrap your tool. So we're gonna go to the rear exhaust port first. We can set this on our bench here. We have some beautiful hardware that came with our exhaust. This is included in all the exhaust kits that we sell. We have hardware and spacers, and today you're going to learn how to use these properly and not send us absolutely stupid, retarded questions to customer service asking, did I do it right? Your pipes suck because I can't get them to work. Well, there's a right and wrong way to install them. Today, you're going to learn the right way. I was informed by my assistant that it would be very helpful to mention to you guys at home how to keep fingerprints off your pipes when you're installing them. One of the ways you can do that is leave the plastic on the pipes. When we send them to you, leave it on, don't take it all the way off. I took it off because I was due to impulsivity and inattention to detail. I just wanted to excitedly move on with installing the pipes. So we're gonna keep fingerprints off these though today, and we're gonna just slide the plastic back a little bit and move on with their install. So if you're wondering why the plastic's still on, that's why. Make sure you take the plastic off before you start the bike. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. So we're gonna attack the rear pipe first. You're going to get a spacer and a nut in your hand. So we're gonna get this into the port, and we're gonna slide the collar over the studs. You can actually angle the pipe back that way. The studs are here, angle it back. It'll hold the collar on the studs. While you take these guys, and the spacer goes on first, then the nut, and I think when we do the front pipe, we'll get a much clearer view of this for you guys. You're just gonna love it, it's beautiful. And you thread that on with your hand, just by hand. Don't use a tool yet. Don't use your tool. A note here, you don't want to tighten that down all the way right away. You wanna get both spacers and nuts on the studs first before you start tightening anything down. So now we move on to this stud. And the reason for that is when you put the pipes on, you can see that you need to drop the pipe down a little bit right here to get this nut and spacer on the stud. Once you have the thread started, you can kind of spin it on by hand, finger tight on the bottom. Pro tip, If your pipes are a little out of line where you want them to be, you can actually loosen the pipes and tighten one side, one stud more than the other to get the pipe to sit where you want. It's important you do this right away. Don't tighten it down, then go, because then you've already crushed that exhaust gasket. So what you want to do is finger tighten them to where it doesn't move, just enough to hold the pipe in place, really. And get the other pipe, and then start lining things up and slowly tighten as you go. And start looking at things, and then you can kind of adjust, tighten this stud, and the whole pipe's gonna come up this way. Tighten this one, the pipe will go down that way. This one, you have the studs at this angle. So you tighten the bottom, it's gonna pull the pipe that way, and vice versa. So a little pro tip there. A lot of guys are like, you gotta crank them down at the same time. Well, you could, but it's not like a car. You actually can tighten one more than the other, and you can get the whole pipe to shift a little bit. I'm not gonna repeat my horrible, irresponsible actions that I did before and pull my Jimmy hat off of the pipe before I install it. I'm going to just slide it down a little bit here. Just ever so gently, tenderly. That's right. You all know how to do this, I know. Don't act like you don't. And then at the back, I'm gonna do the same thing. Just look real slow, real gentle. There you go. So we're just gonna pull it back till we expose this hanger. Oh, there you go. Beautiful, beautiful. Then we're gonna take this big spacer that comes in your kit, slide it over that little stud right there. We're gonna put the exhaust onto the front studs, slide the collar on there, and then put that hanger on the rear stud. Take the nut, put it on the stud so it doesn't fall off. Now that we're gonna take the spacer and nut to our exhaust stud at the front pipe. I want you to get in here real close. The spacer goes on first, then the nut. Da-da-dun-dun, da-da-dun-dun-dun. Look at that. Oh my God, Jenny, look at that. We're gonna do the same for the bottom. And it helps to get your one finger underneath here, get the other one underneath here. It's the best location for an exhaust stud, believe me. So you want to finger tighten both studs again. You can kind of rock the exhaust a little bit. I'm going to loosen the front one, tight on there. Feel like it's going a little uneven. Here we go. Now we'll tighten the top. All right, that feels good. Locked in, locked in. Now that you've got that tightened up, we can take a razor blade or a knife, whatever the fuck have you. I have this sweet knife. No, this knife is not available on shoptjbc.com. Sorry. If you guys think it'd be cool to carry knives, shoptjbc.com, leave me a comment. Love to hear what you guys are carrying, what knives you guys are into. If you're open to us carrying some tools and knives, let us know who you think we should carry. Love to hear that. So we're gonna take the plastic off. We can just slide this one off. At this point, you can step back from your bike and kind of take a look at how the pipes are sitting. If they're kind of doing this number, you know, or if they're doing this, or if they're doing this, then you definitely have a problem on your hands. I kind of want to line these up to where they're parallel. If you're weird, you can do this. You can also do this. It's really up to you. The world is your oyster. You could be a complete numbskull if you really want to. So guys, again, the reason I didn't tighten these pipes down is because I have a little bit of movement here to scooch the pipes up and down to get them lined up where I want them. This one has more movement than the front pipe, obviously. I like where the front pipe is sitting, right about there, where it sits naturally. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these up. This is a 12 millimeter, and I've got a really long extension here. The extension is very important because if you get this other stud, it's really hard to get to when you're all up inside there. Hot tip for you guys. I really enjoy this thing that Snap-on did called the Wobble Plus extensions, and they allow the socket to kind of wobble a little bit. You can push it all the way and it's straight, it won't move, but if you pull it off halfway, it has this wobble action. Really helpful when you're trying to get to the nut on the front exhaust pipe and a lot of other places on a bike. Really helpful little tool. So if you guys have an opportunity, they're really nice. Also, if you break them, you just call a Snap-on guy, he gives you another one. So you can be an absolute gorilla with your tools. And if you snap the shit off, well, the guy comes back and snaps it back on for you. Back to it, kids. Quick note here. Don't tighten these down all the way because before you cinch everything up, you're going to use your torque wrench to tighten it down properly. If you tighten them down too much, you risk a couple things. One, you risk warping the collar. That's a hard thing to do. First off, if you get to that point where the collars are warping, you're doing something wrong. Two, you can strip the stud. Three, you can actually gall the nut to the stud. That's unlikely. We're not using stainless here. Stainless is more liable to gall to the threads. The second thing that can happen is you can actually rip the stud out of the head here. That's no fun because then you got to take it to a broken tap and die place. If you try to put that stud back in yourself and you rip the threads out, you're not doing so hot. I know from experience of a couple bikes I've worked on where the studs are just spinning in the hole or they're actually ripped out, or that you try to thread something in, it just pulls it right out. You gotta be really careful with this process. So take good care of your bike, she'll take care of you. So we've snugged these down a little bit on the front pipe. We're gonna move to the rear pipe. I'm gonna step back a little bit and look at how these are spaced apart. I'm gonna use my to adjust and make sure we have the right length here. Okay, that looks good. That looks very good. Okay, sorry, didn't want to scare the children there. It looks about right to me. I'm gonna get up underneath here and start to snug these pipes down. Be mindful, actually, now time for my favorite. The crow's foot. This little guy, a 12mm crow's foot, is gonna be really helpful to get to these studs on the rear pipe. So I get a little crow's foot. This allows me to scooch in under here and slowly tighten these nuts without having to get an entire socket on there. I'm gonna tighten this one down a little more to move this pipe. There we go. Just take it nice and easy. Remember, you don't wanna tighten it all the way and have to back out. You wanna go little increments. All right, I like the spacing here. So now before I go any further, I'm gonna get my socket and extension, put it on my torque wrench. No, this is not a Snap-on $4,000 torque wrench. It's a Proto. Works great. And we got it set to 18 foot-pounds. Gonna get up underneath here. Watching the end. I have this magic stick. So right now, this is at 10 right there. That's lined up with 10, 0, 10. Now if we go up one click, that's 11. Next dot's 11.5. So we're gonna go up to 18. That's 8. 10 plus 8. 20 is right there. We're just shy of 20. And this is foot-pounds. I'm gonna try and get as close as I can, just because I do know that when you use an extension, it can reduce the amount of torque you're putting on something. So you may not get a perfectly accurate reading. We're not building a spaceship here, so it may not really mean anything, but I feel better about it. That's it right there. A little wobble action going on for the bottom. There we go. That's it. And now we can tighten this bad boy. That's it. And now we're working with the rear pipe. So as you tighten this down, because there's no guide or bracket holding this on, you want to be mindful of where this moves as you're tightening it. So I am going to get my crow's foot and longer extension. Getting there, getting really close. I can feel it. Still 18 foot-pounds. Always double check. If you have one of these manuals, even the digital ones, you hit a button, you might change the reading on the torque wrench, the value. There we go, 18 foot-pounds. That's it. Bada boom, bada bing. And now you've installed HiLo drags on your VT600 without being a Now I'm going to get a microfiber towel, and I'm going to just take some of these fingerprints off so that when we start the bike up, we don't have any special prints on there. Now let's clear the tools off the bench. I have this fancy laser pointer to show you guys what these pipes should look like once they're installed, because we get quite a few emails. I get DMs, questions all the time. My pipes aren't fitting right. People think there's something wrong with them. We design them a specific way on purpose. This isn't just some, you know, like I threw it out there and don't give a. So take a look here at how the front pipe is mounted into the front head. You can see the collar here. You can see the step on the boss right behind it. And then you see this gap. The gap is very important. If we didn't have that gap, what would end up happening is the pipes will go in there and stop, and you wouldn't be able to really tighten it down. So there's a gap on purpose. It's not a defect. It's not made wrong. That is specifically how they should look. There should be a gap between here and the step on the boss. Collar holds the boss into the head. So the rear pipe, let me get a flashlight just to highlight the issue. All right, here we go. Light that right up. Okay, so now we got a light and we're gonna get the laser pointer in there. There is the head. That's the stud. You can see there's a clear defined gap between the collar and the head. This is installed properly. And again, bring your attention to, there's your spacer right there. And there's the nut. This is how our exhaust should be installed correctly on your bike. We're gonna take a listen to this bike and see how it sounds. All right, everyone. Before we get to listening to this beautiful bike purr like a jungle cat, I want you to go ahead and like and subscribe, leave us some comments, all that stupid stuff. Without further ado, let's get this started. Open the choke a little bit. Now, I'm going home.